Okay.
So
Thank
yeah,
you.
now it's recording.
All right. So welcome to Watercolor. It's going to be a fun and very short 6 weeks. I'm glad that you guys are joining us in this beautiful new room. Shall we just give Amy a hand for setting everything up so nice for us? Yay. And she's going to talk in a few minutes after hopefully our last minute stragglers arrive. But just to give you something to do while you're getting ready, go ahead and lay your paints out in a circle, sort of like this color wheel that's shown on the screen up here. And at the top would be pale yellow, and at the bottom would be violet. Okay?
So maybe I'll do it now if you're okay.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to wait until more people come? Because otherwise you're just going to be repeating.
I think it's just 2 people who are scheduled to come, and then some aren't. One is sick, a couple are out of town. So at least 4 that I know that didn't make it.
We could get the name tags too.
Oh, yeah, I will do that after I say this.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so first of all, I have to say this event is made possible by a grant from Michigan Humanities Organization's Pandemic Emergency Grants. It's Michigan Hope. Yep. The funding for these grants has been provided by Michigan Humanities and the National Endowment for the Humanities as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, Economic Stabilization Plan.
Can I interrupt you a minute?
Yes.
You guys have to give Amy applause for this because she wrote the grant. So, yay, Amy. And it's a lot of work to write a grant, I know, because I've done a lot of them. And I gotta tell you, you're getting about a $200 value for free thanks to her hard work. So
The class is free, and the majority of the paint costs, you just if you paid for paint, it was that $5 was not covered towards the paint sets.
yeah, it's about a
Everything
$20 paint, $25 paint
$25
set.
paint set.
Yeah, so you just chipped in so you could have a bigger set.
Better set, yes. And then, so our artist, some of you know her already from previous things she's taught here, some of you don't. Anywhere, Faith, you can have a seat.
Should I put this on me while
Sure,
you're introducing
sure.
me?
Upside
Oh, I'm
down,
gonna stand
sorry.
on my head.
So this is Gail
Hi.
Suess-Brandow. She has been painting since she was 4 years old. She's taught art both in public and private schools for many years, and we're pleased to have her with us tonight and for the next several weeks. And if you can't tell, she's my sister too, so. But yeah, thank you for coming, and that is it. And at the end, if you want to keep your paints here, you can take them home each week, or I can store them in between. That's up to you. Oh, and then we also we're going to talk about Memorial Day weekend. Gail is going to lead a canvas painting that is also covered by this grant, and this is what it is.
Turn it upside down.
Anyway, there you go. Okay, so that
There, you can
is
see it
the
on the screen
painting.
behind me.
I don't have signups yet, but it will be free, so it probably will go fast. So if you want to check back next week if you're interested, hopefully I'll have the sign-up sheet by then.
And these classes typically run $35 to $45, so take advantage of free. Free is good.
Usually the library subsidizes when we do it. I try to only charge 10 or 15. But yeah, this one will be free. So that's Memorial Day weekend. That's Saturday at 9:30. And Gail, if there's anything else, let me know. I'm Amy. If you need anything while she's teaching, just get my attention and I will try to get it for you. Okay.
Trying to get this
Back.
back like we want it. Yes, ma'am? No, this is just a proposed arrangement of colors. And for those of you who are just joining us now, you do not want to use black or white for anything. Throw them in some other craft drawer and do not use those with watercolor, because traditional watercolor never uses black or white. You use the white of the paper for your whites, and you use the black by mixing colors, so don't use those. And I also did not include in my circle all the neutrals, the flesh, raw sienna, burnt sienna, raw umber, burnt umber, or Payne's gray, or not Payne's gray, but gray. So all these neutrals I did not use. Turn this around. I'm not gonna use these tonight. If you want to use them, it's completely your call. And as far as what you do with paints, as you get better at watercolor, you'll probably want to graduate to more of a palette, something like this. trying to work with this projector. This plastic palette is really nice because you can put out your paint in the wells and leave them there and not have to put it out fresh every time. They just dry in there, and it's a real nice palette. I can take it out in the field all ready to go. All I have to do is grab my palette. Susie, you have something like this?
I use a plate.
A plate, okay. Which is what ultimately we're gonna do in a minute here, okay, as you can see here. But you don't have to have all the colors, all right? Just, this is what we've been given through this wonderful grant that you have to work with. Go back here. So, we're going to, in a couple minutes, put them out on a plate, and I've got 24 colors here, and I'll go over with you what they are. We're going to make a color wheel, because we're gonna, tonight, my goal for tonight is to orient you a little bit, to get you your materials, to get to know each other a little bit. I'm hoping Amy is still gonna do name tags for us, when she comes back. Not name tags, but little name cards to sit at your places. I'm really bad with names, so if you would just make sure that you, keep your little name card that Amy's gonna make for you. If you keep that little name card that Amy's gonna make for you and have it every week, that will help me to learn your names, okay? And what else? I'm gonna talk, so my goals for tonight are to get you set up, to talk a little bit about materials, and to make a color wheel, talk a little bit about color theory, a little bit about composition, and experiment a little bit with our paints. So basically tonight is get your feet wet, or rather get your brush wet, okay? So that's the goal for tonight. Next week, we're going to paint flowers, and I'm going to bring in probably a half a dozen live arrangements, not live floral arrangements. I've got some tropical plants that I'm gonna bring in, and a couple of dried flower arrangements. But if you have something that you would really like to paint, or photographs that you wanna work from, Susie, I'm giving you permission to work from a photo if you want to next week. We're gonna do flowers. That's partly why I wanted to talk a little bit about composition tonight, because next week we're gonna dive right in and make our own drawing. Everybody's will be different. Next week, that's flowers. The week after that, we're going to paint glass, and glass is challenging, right, Rihanna? And I'm gonna show you some of Rihanna's paintings in a little bit. Actually, Amy, could you run me over her paintings? I'm gonna see if I can find that glass one to show people.
I have several watercolor books up here. I don't know if you said that yet.
Thank you, I did not talk about
These
that
are
yet.
available to check out from the library. If you're interested, when you leave, just check it out on the way out.
Yeah, there's some really nice books over there, and I also have, for those of you who came on the first night, 4 books up here that you can borrow from me if you like. The first one, Painting What You Want to See by Charles Reed, is a classic. Let me put this under the camera. Painting What You Want to See by Charles Reed. It's a lovely book. It does have some very tasteful nudes in it, but just so you know, if you're under 18, don't leave this book alone, okay? And then I have, no, the other way, Watercolor Painting, Artist Painting Library that you can check out. This is my favorite. Well, these last 2 are my favorites. And Jim, did you end up getting a copy of this one?
Yes, I did.
What'd you think?
I don't know anything.
Oh, okay. Well, there's never enough time. I'll tell you, I'm retired now and I'm busier than I ever was. But Watercolor Bold and Free has 64 different approaches to watercolor. And if you've been painting for a while, that's a good one to go to, because it's gonna make you think about some things maybe you haven't thought about before with watercolor. And I know Susie's done quite a bit of watercolor. Who else in here has painted with watercolor before? A little bit? Okay, well, good. We've got a variety. And how many of you have never painted with watercolor? A few of you, and some of you are kind of somewhere in between. Don't want to admit that you've done it, but yeah. This is also a lovely book, America's Best Contemporary Watercolors. This was contemporary probably 30 years ago, so now it's ancient history. But it's a good book. So if you want to borrow any of those from me, you can borrow them for 2 or 3 weeks or the whole class, depending on what you want to do. Anyway, I wanted to show you Rihanna's beautiful glass piece. She did a nice job. She's got, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some lovely green in there as a complement to the pink that's in the bottle. And glass is not easy, but we're going to paint glass. And here is your homework. How do you like this? We haven't even started. I'm giving you homework. You need to find a glass picture or some glass bottles that you want to paint. For next week, I would like to see your pictures if you want to paint from a photograph. If you don't bring one, you're stuck with what I give you, and I don't want to hear any complaints that it's too hard, okay? Because I'm giving you the opportunity to pick what you want to paint from. So by next week, if you could bring in a picture of glass, or just tell me if you're going to bring in your own bottles, you can tell me that next week too. And if somebody brings in a really cool photograph or magazine picture of glass, I'm going to have Amy make copies of that, and several of us can paint that together. Okay, so I'm looking for 2 weeks hence to paint from what you bring in next week, glass pictures. Does that make sense? Am I going too fast? Photos of glass, yes. Yeah.
You don't want us to do a painting.
I do not want you to do painting. You can if you want to, but most of you are probably not going to have the time to do that in the next week, I'm guessing. How many of you guys are crazy busy? Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. And again, it is very short, so I wanted to show you a little. So we're going to do flowers next week. And again, if you want to bring in your own flowers or photograph of flowers, you're welcome to. But please do bring in your photograph or plan for glass next week also, even though we're painting it the following. That's because I want to see ahead of time what you're going to do. So hopefully that makes sense. Any questions so far? Okay, and then I've got some more fun things planned after that. This is a monochromatic, oops. I have to go the right way. Monochromatic painting of some cute little penguins. And there we go. I really love this. This is very kind of a simple approach to color. Monochromatic, mono means one and chroma means color. So this is your basic one color scheme. I'm going to give you a lot of color theory tonight. Don't feel like you have to remember everything. It's your initial exposure. For some of you, some of it will probably be old news, but some of, hopefully it will excite your brain and make you think some new things. Okay, so everybody has your paints out and ready. So what you're going to do is, let me talk a minute about palette opportunities. You have a plate at your table, and you can take this home with unused paint on it, but you can, next week if you want to, you can bring in a styrofoam plate if that's what you want to be your palette, or a glass plate, or Rihanna, if you could hold that up a minute and show everybody. Actually, could you bring it here a minute, honey? I'll show it on the camera for the people that are watching from home. This palette, metal palette, white palette. It should be white, whatever you're painting on, so that you can see the colors of the paint. Thank you, dear. You can use that. She keeps hers nice and clean. Mine, not so much. Okay, this is the Crazy Artist palette. If you could get a plastic palette like this, if you're going to do some serious watercolor painting, something with wells like this to keep your paint in, then you don't have to put it out fresh every time. But some people prefer to put out fresh paint. So if you have a paper plate in front of you, what we're going to do is start with the yellow at the top and the violet at the bottom. I did not divide this evenly into 24 spaces. You can see I got a little gap going here, but violet at the bottom, yellow at the top, and it's always arranged like that. The reason for that is Yellow is lightest, and you want the lightest at the top, and purple is darkest, or violet, and you want that at the bottom. Okay, it's just a visual representation. Doug?
I got 3 yellows here, which one do I use?
It really probably doesn't matter a lot, and I know Susie has different colors than I have too, but I started with the pale yellow, and then I went to lemon yellow, and then mid yellow. So I went pale, lemon, mid. Whoops. Pale, lemon, mid. Okay? And then at the bottom, violet, the opposite. And this is kind of a little wonky, cockeyed here. But violet. And these were, Doug is my husband, by the way, if you hadn't figured that out yet. Our wedding colors were yellow and purple. And I know that's kind of a strange, eclectic color combination, but we picked it because that is a color scheme called complementary. We wanted to complement or complete each other in our relationship. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite on the color wheel. And that means that you don't want to mix them, because if you mix opposites, you get them all mixed up, it's a muddy mess. If you put them side by side, it's really intense. And we wanted to have yellow and purple side by side so that it was an intense relationship. And boy, let me tell you, be careful what you wish for. No, it's been a fun ride. So yellow and purple, top and bottom, lightest and darkest, the strongest complementary color contrast. And then, how many of you guys know anything about color theory, like primary colors and secondary? A little bit? Okay, so you're going to make a color wheel on your paper plate, and you have some cheapo typing paper here. And this is just kind of a throwaway, but it's an important exercise. You're going to put the yellow at the top, and
Question,
yes,
are we supposed to do the whole plate?
I would suggest doing that unless you have a different plan. If you want to use your white plastic palette, you can use that for mixing, or you can use it to put your colors in, whatever you want to do. You can save that white one for the neutrals if you want to. Really, it's whatever makes sense to you.
Are we doing that now?
Yes, get the yellow and purple, the opposites, like this. That is just not quite enough room. There we go. Yellow and purple. And you can make notes on there. You have a pencil, which Amy's put out at every place. You can draw a line between them and write complements if you want. And complement is C-O-M-P-L-E-M. Complement. Yeah, because it completes. It's not I-M, it's E-M. Complement to complete. Okay, and we're going to take the red, which red I used, I think this was magenta. No, this was the crimson red. And we're gonna put red over here. And yeah, about 8 o'clock, and then at about 4 o'clock, blue. And if you ignore that purple for a minute, what you're gonna see here is called the primary triad. The primary colors are the colors from which you can mix all the rest. If that's all that we had money for, if we didn't get this wonderful grant, and you only had 3 colors, you could mix all the rest of the colors from those alone. Okay? Pretty cool, huh? If you mix red and blue, you get purple. What happens if you mix yellow and blue? you're gonna get a nice green. So I'm gonna put some green over here. And if you mix yellow and red, what happens, Rowan? Yellow and red? What? Orange, exactly. So we're gonna put our orange on there. I used, for mine, Jim, I used cerulean, but cobalt would work fine too. Either one works. Really, there's lots of choices with watercolor, and you will find that I'm not like super controlling about how you paint or what you do with your paints or your palette or whatever, because it really is an individual choice. And I know some of you want real specific direction because you've never done this before, but trust yourself. The best thing you can do to help yourself get better at art is to have a lot of faith that it's gonna be okay and you're just doing this to have fun anyway, right? Is anybody doing this to become like a professional artist? Susie is, okay. Well, I believe you, Susie. And maybe that will happen, that would be cool. Just remember me when you get rich and famous. Okay, so probably that's not gonna happen for most of you. You're just here to have fun. Just remember that you have to have faith in yourself. I'm going to draw the secondary triad. The secondary colors are the ones that you get when you mix two primaries. So if you mix yellow and red, you get orange, and that's a secondary color then. If you mix red and blue, you get purple. And if you mix yellow and blue, you get green. Okay? Yes, that was, I believe that was a sap green. Okay, so you have two triangles here, the primary triad and the secondary triad. The primary of red, yellow, and blue, again, you can mix all the other colors from it. If you're lucky and you have 6 colors, you really got all that you need here with the secondaries also. When you're making your own paintings, your flower paintings or your music paintings that we're going to do in a few minutes, a good color scheme would be to use one of the primary triads. One of the triads, either the primary or the secondary triad. So maybe you're going to want to do a little painting that has just orange, green, and purple. That makes a good color scheme. Maybe you want to do a complementary painting. And remember, those are the complements. Also, orange and blue are complementary, and red and green are complementary. So you can complete your little color wheel like that. And I'm going to add in some other colors now. Some of these are a little bit out of order, but I put a Payne's gray here. No, that's not Payne's gray. What is that? I have to peek. Oh, that was the violet. I guess, no, that was Prussian blue. They got mixed around here. And then Payne's gray is as close to black as we're going to get. It's got a blue cast to it. It's like black with some blue in it, and it's really lovely for watercolor. Black, the reason I don't use black or white because you have the white of the paper, black because it is just the dullest color in watercolor, and you really don't need it. So you can do what you want with it. Okay, and then I have magenta, crimson red, scarlet, maybe that's scarlet. No, that's vermilion. That is orange yellow. My other yellows. Sorry. Okay, and then we're gonna put the greens. I've got next to the yellow, I've got the emerald green. And then I believe that's called permanent green right next to it. Then the sap green. Then hooker's green, which starts to shift a little bit towards the blue. Viridian, little bluer still. Then the deep green. Cerulean, and again, Susie, it doesn't have to be the exact same colors. Okay, the idea is to make a color wheel where you're going from yellow to orange to red to purple to blue to green. Okay, so however you want to lay your colors out with whatever colors you've got. Does this make sense? Okay. And I've got cobalt blue and ultramarine blue, well, that's a rich one. And then phthalocyanine. And if you want to label those so you can tell what colors are what, you're welcome to do so. Yes.
I'm pretty overwhelmed.
Okay. Okay. Just lay your colors out. Just spread your paints out like this and then make your color wheel.
But I don't even know if I have all of them in the right order.
Okay, well, like I said, they don't have to be exact because you could easily switch these around, you could switch those around, you could switch those around. Basically, the idea is just to go from yellow to orange to red to purple to blue to green. Think about the 6 colors, the primary and secondary colors. If you've got those.
Gradations here, I'm not sure if I have them in the right order.
Right, and I know you're a little colorblind too, so don't worry about the specifics. If you can just get it generally in the right place so that you have your yellows up here, your blues over here, your greens on this side, your oranges next to the yellow. You don't have to have them in the right specific order. Thank you for asking about that. You're gonna you can take it home with you if you want to paint at home, or you can keep it right with your paint set, or you can throw it away, but then you have to have another plate next week. So, how was that for a non-answer?
They'll dry.
They'll dry.
If you leave them, just don't dump it when you get the car, they'll dry, and then you use the same paint set.
Yeah, she said they'll dry. I'm gonna repeat everything everybody says just so they can hear it close to the camera here. They will dry like this and you can keep it for next time. Just don't dump it in your car. Okay. I want to talk a minute about supplies. Can I talk while you guys paint, or will that be too frustrating? Okay, it is, I know it's a lot of information, but we have such a short time together. I want to give you as much as I can. I have a wonderful tool here. It's your basic Tupperware salt shaker. Doesn't have to be Tupperware, okay? But if you could make yourself a little art kit that includes a salt shaker, I did go through the drive-through a few times and got you some salt at your table, okay? I just asked for extra salt every time I went, and I had a good excuse to go buy some junk food a few times, right? I needed that. So anyway, salt is wonderful. We're going to use this tonight, but you want to have some sort of a salt shaker or stock up on your salt packets when you go through the drive-through, because I will not be providing salt every week, and you're probably going to want it every week, okay? And again, if you don't use it all, you can keep it till next time. You'll probably also want to have some Q-tips on hand. You have one tonight, but again, you're going to want to get your own and have a little kit, okay? Those are nice for lifting color out of little tiny places. Cotton ball, the same thing. It's to soak up the paint in the water. If you are really serious about this, and I know Susie and Jim are probably going to want to have these, and anybody else who's painted before, a natural sponge is a wonderful tool for dabbing, and you can get some pretty cool textures out of natural sponges. Okay, and you can pick these up at Bed Bath & Beyond or online, or don't worry about it. If you don't have those, it's not going to hurt you. Okay, if you want to mask off edges, let me show you what that looks like. This is is Mary here tonight? No Mary, no Nicole? Mary and Nicole and Jim did a watercolor workshop with me, and this, I didn't think I recognized them. I taped off the edges here, and you can see it gives you a real nice border so that you've got a finished looking painting without having to worry about matting it. And painter's tape is really nice for that. Okay, so that's something optional, not mandatory. And I'll show you what else I did with that. For some of the techniques, get it going the right way. Those are masked in between, but if you don't have tape or just don't want to have a little kit handy, you can just draw a line between sections if you're practicing techniques, okay? And you can paint right out to the edge if you don't want to mask off the edges. That's perfectly fine too. But the tape is a good thing to have in your kit. Variety of brushes. This is the one that comes with your kit. So that's what you've got to work with, unless you invest in a bigger round brush or a super big, what's called a mop brush. I love this brush. It's so used that the paint has worn right off the handle from the water. You can see that there. But a bigger brush is nice because it helps you not be so tight that you're over controlled and too tense. You don't want to be tense about this. You want to just kind of go with the flow. That's what watercolor is. It's all about going with the flow, because watercolor has a mind of its own. Okay, so you might want to invest in some bigger brushes. All right, let me think. What else? A crayon. Crayon is a nice tool for something called wax resist. And I'll show you a little spot of wax resist right here. And this wax resist here was done with crayon, oil pastel, and candle. 3 different waxes that resist the water and leave you with white. Okay, so get either a crayon, a white candle, or a white oil pastel if you're putting together your little kit. Okay, and again, if you don't do this, don't sweat it, don't stress, because everything is optional. All right. Okay, so white wax instrument if you wish. What else? Paper towel. We will have paper towel here every time. Paper towel is good not only for cleanup, but for dabbing texture in places too. Okay. Are y'all with me? Does everybody have your color wheel done? Does anybody need more time?
I'll make it on.
Fake it till you make it. I like that. Okay. So we have this, so we can see what colors are what. And if you want to label them sometime, you can do that. I'm going to use my trusty tried and true palette here, just because for me, This is way claustrophobic. It's way a lot of color in a tiny space and they're all gonna run together. But you know what? I just changed my mind. Because they're out, I'm gonna use this because that's what you're using. And I will experience the same frustration that you might experience with colors running into each other. But some nice things happen. When colors bump into each other, you get some beautiful mixing that you might not have thought of otherwise. So I'm gonna use that. Let me put this out of the way a minute. And clean up my space a little bit. Oh, you also, if you're putting together a kit, you might want to have a spray bottle of some sort, because the spray bottle will keep your paints from drying when you don't want them to be too dry. And if you get a plastic palette like this, you can spray to rehydrate your paints every time, okay? And sometimes you get a really cool effect if you spray water drops into a painting and makes these sparkly little colors, which is pretty cool. Okay, so what we're gonna do is explore the salt technique. I'm looking for my paper here. You've got some papers in front of you. Everybody should have, do you have one of these postcard sizes or two? I think everybody's got two, maybe? Two little ones and two big ones? Okay, all right, good. You can use them in any order. I don't care, but you've got 4 shots, and actually, you know what? If you're tricky, you've got 8 shots, okay? That long skinny one that I see you having, Sue, that's just a practice thing if you want to try out colors on there. It's a little bit thicker than the typing paper, but it's just for practice. Okay, so I'm gonna clear the deck of all these. Put my palette here. And one of my little postcard size pieces of paper. And if you want to watch me the first time, I'm going to show you the salt technique, and then I will turn you loose to paint some music and get my, where'd my speaker go? There it is, okay. Might have to start it up again. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to, oh, wait a minute. I thought about one more thing for your kit. If you have a gallon jug and you cut it so that you've got the handle, this makes a really great carrying thing to keep your little kit in. It also doubles as a larger water container because this little stuff, it gets dirty so fast. And you can see I cheated and I have 2 here because I can't stand to not have a clean water available. There's a sink over there and you can feel free to get up and change your water anytime it gets dirty. But if you get one of these little jobbies, you have a lot more water in it. It doesn't get dirty nearly so fast. And then you can carry everything in your handy dandy little kit. So a milk jug cut up or distilled water jug is a nice thing. And I'd be using mine because I like a lot of water to paint with. But we discovered when we went to fill it up that nothing lasts forever. And this plastic that's supposed to last forever has holes in it. So get one that doesn't leak. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint, just to paint the music. Do not paint objects, okay? We're going to paint shapes. Yes, Doug?
So we should have on this plate, like, the paint that we're actually painting with?
Yes.
We're not, so we want to take it from here?
Yes.
Mix it?
Yes.
Okay.
He said, so we should have on this plate the paint that we're actually painting from, and you can see my colors have already run together. I knew that was going to happen.
So if there's no water on it, it should stick.
If there's no water on it, it sticks, but you won't be able to paint if you don't get any water on it.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, you're right.
So we don't take it directly, we don't squeeze this on the brush. I mean, squeeze this on the brush.
No, you're going to paint from your paper plate. Okay. Okay, so I want you to watch me the first time out while I demonstrate this salt technique, but I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get big sloppy wet areas of paint, and it has to be sloppy wet. If you have a dry area of paint, the salt technique does not work, okay? And for those of you that have little salt packets at your place, which is everybody except for Amy's kids and me, you're gonna wanna shake some salt into your hand, not yet. I'm just telling you what I'm gonna do, okay? Then you're gonna watch me and then you're gonna do it, okay? So you shake just a few crystals of salt, and into the wet paint, you're gonna sprinkle just a few grains. You can easily overdo it and make a yucky mess, but you're gonna find that out as you experiment. So again, sloppy wet paint, few grains of salt, and then after you have put the salt into the sloppy wet paint, you leave it alone. That is sort of like how important it is if you keep checking, if you're making bread and you keep opening up the oven, what's gonna happen? Yeah, it's gonna fall, it's gonna make a mess. If you have a cake and the cake is half baked and you stir it, yuck, okay? So you wanna leave it alone. The cooking analogy really works with paint. It's a chemical reaction that's happening between the salt and the water, and it's gonna crystallize and make some pretty cool sparkly effects. But again, don't stir it once you put the paint in. Questions before I begin? Okay, I'm just gonna do one just so you get the idea of not painting an object, just expressing what I hear in the music, go with the flow and what you feel. You can watch me do a quick little one, and then I'll put on some more music for you guys to do this, okay? And I'll walk around and watch what you do. Any colors you want, but don't do it until after you see me do the salt technique, okay? How many of you have painted with salt before? I know Susie has, and Jim, and the Schultz kids. Anybody else? Okay, it's really fun. Who knew salt was a, okay, and?
Makes great snow.
Makes great snow, yes. What is your name? I can't see your name.
Karen.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Thank you. Yeah, I won't mix you up with Susie. And by the way, if you guys could sit in kind of the same places next time, it will help me learn who you are, but keep your name tagged with your stuff, okay? Okay,
I have a question.
yes.
Are you gonna wet the paper first before you do the color?
No, I'm not. You can if you want to. Anything goes with this water paint. There's a variety of techniques. There's more techniques than you can shake a stick at. You see here, dry brush. This is using the paint with very little water. That's not gonna work with salt. So I just said anything goes, anything except for dry brush, okay? Let me see if I can find one with salt in it. Did not have good examples. Oh, here, this is kind of crystallized. See these little sparkly areas in the paint? That's spray. That's from using the spray bottle into the wet. And I know where I have the salt.
I also have one in mind.
Oh, let me show them yours.
Probably middle to end.
Okay. We've got some cool techniques here. Is it this one? Ooh, right here.
Oh, yeah.
Here, this is beautiful. See those marks in the hair? Very nice, Rihanna. That is the salt technique, and you can see the grains of salt. This is a little heavy-handed. It was a lot of salt, but experiment with going everywhere from just 3 or 4 grains of salt up to a whole bunch of it like this, and you'll get the idea for what you want to create the effect that you're looking for. Okay, this, by the way, is called an analogous color scheme, and that means colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. That's another nice color scheme that you can try. Okay, thank you, Brianna. All right, so let me get my music on a minute and paint. Everybody knows that piece, right? Okay, I've got some sloppy wet paint here, and I'm going to put just a little bit of salt into my hand so that I can control how much I sprinkle, and sprinkle it just in the wet areas. And then you let it dry. Okay? Now I'm gonna keep painting with some other colors, because the music has changed a bit. Oh, I got some green in it. I like how that blended and made an interesting color. And I'm gonna put in a little more salt. Okay, you get the idea? Okay, you can start. Remember, it has to be a sloppy, wet puddle of paint for the salt to do its thing. And put it into your hand rather than shaking it right from the packet, because that would give you too much. And you can see how my postcard has kind of bowed up. Leave some white places on your paper for contrast. And then while I have wet paint, I'm gonna put in a few more grains of salt. But notice I did not paint over any place where I already put the salt, because it's doing its chemical thing already. Big puddle of wet. Wet paint. See that?
Good.
Oh, you tipped it up, which means you're stirring a half baked cake. Leave it flat to dry.
Okay.
I said let me see it, but he already had it. Okay, congratulations, you just completed your first painting. This was just experimental. Remember, tonight all we're doing is getting our brushes wet and experimenting. Please slide it carefully to one side without upsetting that chemical reaction. Don't pick it up. Just slide it out of the way. And we're gonna do another one. And again, try not to do subject matter. Think about color scheme. Maybe you want to stick with the primary triad, the red, yellow, blue. Maybe you want to go with the yellow, purple scheme. Maybe you want to put all the colors that are next to each other and do an analogous color scheme. Just experiment. And I'm going to put on a different piece of music so it'll have a different feel to it. Questions so far? Yes. Whichever you prefer. If you have paper left over at the end, you can take it home and paint or save it for another week. Okay? Four Seasons by Vivaldi. I'm going to shift to a bigger brush because it will soak up more water. Just another experiment with the salt. Leave it flat this time. No, either the small paper or the large piece.
I only have one small one.
You should have two small ones.
I think I only have one.
Yeah, we only have one small one, but then have a bookmark.
Okay, use a big one then.
I have one small. I can check how much small
Again, sloppy wet paint to get the salt technique going. Got an analogous color scheme going here. It's really wet paint. Had a little salt left on my hand. Gotta put my brush on it so it doesn't bow up.
I love the colors.
More water, right? Nice. That's good. Yes, you know what? That makes the best painting. Paint like a child. Variety. I didn't get to talk to you yet about composition, and we're almost out of time. Composition, when you compose, I want to teach you 2 rules of composition tonight. 2 things only, and we'll close it out with that. I'm going to stop this a minute. 2 rules of composition. I'm going to teach you 12 over the 6 weeks. Try to remember these 2 things for next week. Yes, there will be a quiz. The first is, when it comes to rules of good composition, there's an exception to every rule. Okay, so rule number 1, exception to every rule. Rule number 2, think variety. Doug, I'm talking to you especially on this one. Think variety. If your shapes are all pretty much the same size, make some big and some small. Make some diagonal and some straight. Think variety. Okay? So those are your 2 rules of competition. Can you remember that for a week?
What's the first one?
Exception to every rule. The rule number 1 is there are no rules, basically. Exception to every rule. And rule number 2 is think about variety. Variety of shape, variety of size, variety of color, variety of direction. This paper is not the best crystallizing paper that I've ever seen. So if you're not getting any crystally marks, it's probably not you. It's probably the paper. Paper is one of the most expensive things about art. Well, I guess it all is. Brushes, the quality of brush that you use makes a big difference. But quality of paper. Is this 90-pound paper, Amy?
I can tell you, sorry, I got distracted here.
Oh, you're fine. The bigger paper is heavier. I can tell just feeling it that the bigger pieces of paper
140 pounds.
are 140 pound, but the postcard paper is
That I don't know was leftover piece, I think.
postcard paper is left over. So I did not get good results at all from this postcard stuff. So if you didn't either, I've been doing this for a bazillion years and I didn't get much salt crystallizing happening on this stuff. Okay, the bigger paper works a lot better because it's a heavier weight paper. Okay.
Just buy it off Amazon. If you wanna buy it.
Okay. All right. Do you want one more quick one or else you can pack it up? Do we need to pack it up, Amy, or can we go one more since we got a kind of a late
That's
start?
fine.
We're gonna do one more piece so you can use use your big paper this time if you haven't already tried the big, I guess you had no choice. Okay.
Anything you wanna leave here for next week? At the moment, we have plenty of space, we haven't put all our covers yet. But I definitely can keep your paints, if you wanna keep them, if you wanna take them home and practice, that's great, but if you wanna leave them here, so they're here, that's totally up to you.
Okay, and for those watching on the replay, she said, you can leave your things here if you want to, and they'll be here for you next week. Valkyrie. Yes.
Maybe while they paint, can you tell me about I just forgot to see how it's facing the boots.
Oh, yeah. I'll wait. Anybody wants to borrow a book, now would be the time.
Yeah, I'd like to borrow that city. You can maybe see it and I can see it. And I love your teacher. Thank you.
And on it goes. Whoops. But we're gonna stop there. Okay, thank you for coming, thank you for experimenting, and feel free to finish up what you're doing. And then, as Amy said, you can leave your things if you wish for next week. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Yes.
Don't forget flowers next time, glass picture, okay? Oh, and also the Boots picture right here, which is gonna be on Memorial Day Saturday, free, thanks to the grant. We will have the drawing drawn up for you so that you don't have to stress about all the detail, okay? So we'll have it drawn on there, unless you tell us that you wanna draw it yourself, in which case I'm sure Amy will have some blank canvases ready and be more than happy that we didn't have to draw it up. Okay, but this will be drawn on here for you, so it'll make it easy. What? Oh, I thought we were gonna draw it ahead of time. Yeah. Some stuff.